Hi, I'm Nem, and I think we've come to an understanding, you and I. Final Fantasy XIV, critically acclaimed, free trial, blah 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 blah. Pretty great. But what if I told you that I'm here to offer you something you might like? That's right, what if I'm here to tell you that maybe I'm here to teach you how to play Blackmage? Blackmage is a super cool job. It plays 4D chess in its head with every encounter. It takes planning, pre-positioning, and understanding mechanics better than most players have to. If you want player commendations as a DPS, it's the job to pick, but only if you do it well. And you can only do it well by failing and learning. So, Blackmage, let's go through how to play it. Maybe you level boosted, maybe you leveled it like I did the first time and had no idea how to play it by the time I got to endgame, and got confused by level sinking down to earlier levels and then level sinking up and how drastic things change with Blackmage. So I'm here to kind of give you a hand. Now there are a bunch of guides out there. Some guides will walk you through ability by ability. Some will work you through from the ground up. I'm here to teach you how to play Blackmage. There are some things you're going to want to understand that you will understand by reading the tooltips as you level up from level 1 to level 50. We'll start with level 50, and then we'll go from there. You have a lot of spells and a lot of abilities that we're going to want to go over. Let's switch to, just to make this easier, we'll switch to one of my other characters, who is quite literally a level 50 Black Mage. And then we'll do 60, 70, and 80. This is him, right? Yeah. Perfect. So level 50 Black Mage is not a complicated rotation, and I think it's the perfect point, the perfect starting point for becoming a good Black Mage. Like, you learn a lot about Black Mage at level 50. You do. You learn a lot about procs and a lot about movement, and I think it's all very helpful. We're gonna go find a training dummy real quick, and I'll show you what I mean. We'll go over some skills, abilities, some tips and tricks at level 50 on how to get the most out of your Black Mage. And then maybe we'll see if we can queue up for something at level 50 to kind of showcase what you would like to do with this job. Then we can go over level 60 stuff, 70 stuff, and 80 stuff. And this is stuff you're going to want to keep in mind, because as a high-level Black Mage, you will end up running content that sinks you down, and you're going to have to readjust your playstyle and readjust your rotation a lot more than you would have to on, say, a Paladin, you know, who is going down from 1-2-3 combo, 1-2-3 combo to just 1-2, you know, or something silly like that. Black Mage isn't like that. Alright. So Black Mage uses its fire and ice forms, right? And it can have multiple openers. Some are more optimal than others, and as you play the job, you may find things that fit you better. But you want to look at your statistics, actually, when choosing how to play Black Mage, because Black Mage is all about the player. It's not about RNG per se, though there are some proc mechanics in there that can help you out in a tough situation. It's not about building the best stats possible, even. Like, it's just, what do you have, what do you want, and how do you want it to play out? What can you do with it as a player? And that's why it's so cool, because the better you are as a player, the more spectacular Black Mage shines. And now you can build it for slow crit speed or fast, you know, direct hit builds, and then get even more out of it in the ultra end game, as you can with any job. But for Black Mage, it can really excel wherever you're at. So level 50. At level 50, Black Mage will cast fire mostly, and you get 3 bubbles of your astral fire and umbral ice, right? The thing to understand about level 50 Black Mage is that when you have 3 of a buff, you can cast a transition spell with a low cast time to get to the other one, right? So Blizzard 3 from 3 fires, and Fire 3 from 3 blizzards. That's what you want to keep in mind. Burn phase, mana phase. We've all heard it about Blackmage a million times, right? But what we haven't heard is mana management. Mana management is the most important thing of Blackmage, and if you do your rotation correctly, you don't even have to think about it. But you do need to do your rotation mostly correctly. Otherwise, you'll find yourself either dropping your buffs, or you'll find yourself backtracking into Ice Phase early before you get all your damage out. So, for Blackmage, typically, dot management is the name of the game. Your damage will be a lot higher if you properly manage your one dot, and that might not sound too difficult, usually it's not, but it gets harder after level 50. At level 50, it's not too bad. Typically, I open up with the risky build. There's always a risky build and a less risky build, and the risky build typically needs spell speed. But at this level, it's totally okay. I like to open up with Fire 3. Fire 3 gives us these 3 buffs, and then we can hit him with Thunder 3. And then, we'll have 7,600 mana, and we're just going to spam Fire 1 to keep our buff up, and to get procs. And you'll see here we got Fire Starter and Thundercloud. Thundercloud, you want to manage properly. You'll see that you want to line up your buff timing. I'm going to cast a fire to keep this up. You want to line up your Thundercloud with your dot timing so that neither one expires for that free cast. It is also helpful during movement phases to use that. So you can use it early. You don't need to wait till they're both about to expire if you're moving and you're having trouble getting damage out, because it is more damage than your movement spell, Scathe. Alright, so the Fire Starter gives a free Fire 3, and that's the big source of our damage. Fire Starter for free Fire 3s for more damage without spending the mana. Fire 3 is not worth casting because it takes too much mana when you're in Fire Phase, because in Fire Phase, fire spells, their mana costs go up, right? So you want to cast Fire 3 when it's free, just like this. And that's your DPS phase. That's really it. You're casting Fire 1, you're keeping your dot up, you're casting more Fire 1, and then when you get to this point, 400 mana. What you want to do at 400 mana is you want to cast Mana Font. You want to stay in your Fire phase, keep your dot up, and use Fire 1. That's what you want to do. Free Fire 3s only, right? And then you'll be down to 200 mana. At this point, you don't have Mana Font. You can cast Blizzard 3. And if you want to be really tricky, you'll Swift cast Thunder 3 right after. Your mana will be back up, and then you can cast Fire 3 to go back into Fire Phase at full mana. That's literally all you do as a level 50 Black Mage, which is important because you have to deal with mechanics. You're running around, you're picking up orbs, you're getting knocked back, you're doing all these things. And so you just want to cast Fire 1 as much as possible. When you can't cast Fire 1 anymore, you want to cast Blizzard. You want to maintain your dot. If you need to wait for mana, you can cast a Blizzard 1 while you're waiting. And then Fire 3 to round out that transition back to spamming Fire 1. We got some procs here, we're going to use them. Just like this, a nice cadence. Right? Back to Fire 1. And you might think this is very boring. And honestly, spamming Fire 1 is not that exciting. I know. When you get a lot of procs, it's great. When you don't, it's feast or famine. I seem to be getting quite a good amount here. We're going to cast Blizzard 3, right? And the cadence continues. We're going to cast Thunder 3. And we're going to cast Fire 3. And then back to the Fire 1s. That's literally it for level 50 Black Mage. That's all you gotta do. You can start getting really good at level 50 Black Mage from there, because now you've mastered, what, Swift Cast, right? Which you can use Swift Cast in a number of ways. Like if you're about to lose your buff because of movement, you can Swift Cast a fire or an ice or whatever to maintain your buff. Like that is a great move. Like don't risk dropping your buffs. I like to Swift Cast the Thunder when I feel in control you know what I mean, of the situation where I'm not desperately trying to dodge mechanics and also do my rotation. But if that's not the case, you can definitely swift cast that fire while you're moving to keep your buff from dropping off. That's what you want to learn as a level 50. If you want to get really good, you'll learn about how if you don't have swift cast and you're moving, instead of dropping your buff, you can cast transpose. It's not ideal. Don't get me wrong, it's definitely not ideal, but it'll save you dropping your buff and becoming mana starved, right? Which is what you want to avoid. You want to get really, really, really good. You learn when to addle enemy AoE magic spells, and as you play the game, you'll identify magic spells better and better, no problem. And you'll learn how to mana ward to shield non-raid wide damage. So like if they have an attack that targets you specifically as a DPS, or an AoE maybe that does a lot of damage to everyone, so some raid wides, right? Like a targeted lightning attack where you have to split off from each other, stay spread, but everyone gets hit. Great time for mana ward, you know, learning how to deal with that. These are all non-AoE situations. Of course, the AoE rotation on Blackmage gets even weirder, but we'll focus on just a single target. If you understand the single target, you can understand the AoE, because there's only a few AoE spells. You can also cast Flare with your swift cast, which can be a great move, albeit you might have to use Lucid Dreaming to get through such situations. So if we open up with the Fire 3, you know, and the Thunder 3, let's see if we have enough mana, because I don't actually remember. Flare does eat all your mana. It has a really long cast time, right? So we have our procs, we're going through, easy peasy, right? We don't have enough for Fire 2, we do have enough for Flare, so you can swift cast Flare for even more damage, but now you're out of mana. So we're going to use Mana Font, reapply our dot, alright, cast the fires. You don't really want to be totally out of mana, because I'll show you what happens. If you do this, you skip your transition phase, right? At level 50, you cannot cast Blizzard 3 at 0 mana. So you have to transpose, you have to Lucid Dreaming, and then you have to cast, you're only at Blizzard 1, you now have to cast Blizzard 3. So it's not really worth casting Flare in a single target situation, because you lose out on a lot of time. I don't think that's worth it. You have to cast all this other stuff. For what? For what? For 250 potency? Come on, 260? Not worth it. Not worth it at all. AoE situations, Flare's great. At level 50. Like that's their final spell, you know? And it's good. It costs 7,900 mana. So it doesn't actually cost all your mana anymore. So that's interesting. I wonder with the mana changes if that would be better done another way. But that's a story for another time. Okay, so that's level 50. Pretty straightforward. Take some practice, you know. I don't know if there's any... I don't have any level 50 content except Castrum, so let's not even worry about it. But yeah, that's level 50. And when you get downscaled to level 50, you'll revert back to that very simple keep your dot up, spam Fire 1 mentality. Recharge with your transitional Blizzard 3 and Fire 3. These are all the fundamentals that most of it never goes away on Blackmage. Like you will always rely on your transitional spells, like keeping your dot up, mana warding, addling, mana fonting to stay in fire. Like those basic fundamentals never go away. Sure, casting to avoid knockbacks, but that's on every job, right? You know, all of these things. Lucid Dreaming is not really used much or at all on Blackmage, except at certain level brackets and like in AoE situations. You know what I mean? Like if you're casting Flare a bunch for AoE, transposing to get back because you can't cast Freeze, which is an AoE ice spell, you know, that kind of thing, right? But that's level 50. Now we're going to want to take a look at a little bit of a higher level. We'll use my level 80. I don't have a level 60 Blackmage on hand to kind of go through the level 60 rotation. It's quite different because you get a lot of power play spells to add on top of this, which adds layers of complexity. It's a very simple base class, but layers of complexity go on top of it as well as below it. Layers of complexity with the mechanics of the fight and how those things don't always play well together unless you really plan it out. But when you do plan it out, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful job. I consider Blackmage my favorite job. It's the most fun for me to play. It's the one where it feels so good to do right, and it feels so wrong to do wrong. Every time I learn a new fight, with Blackmage being the first job that I learn it on, it's a struggle. A lot of extra deaths. A lot of, oh, I placed my ley lines in this spot instead of this spot. And it's one of those things where I wish there was video content. You know, like you learn how to do a fight by watching, you know, all these other videos. I wish there were Blackmage specific learning videos for a lot of fights, because you have to play differently than the rest of the party a lot of the times. You have to know, I need to be in this spot, ley lines at this timing, delay ley lines because of these mechanics, do this, do that, do this. And it changes too based on your spell speed. Spell speed's a huge mechanic for Blackmage. You know, you have critical hit, your big ones, critical hit, direct hit, if you're not going with critical hit, spell speed. That's it. Those are your stats. I have like a really weird critical hit spell speed thing going on, and my spell speed is not high enough right now. I make it work with what I've got. It does in fact work. I still like top DPS charts or whatever when I'm doing whatever with my like prog parties. I don't parse, but I get the job done, you know. But this is not ideal. This is not an ideal setup, and that's okay, because Blackmage can excel wherever it's at. So let's mix it up a little bit and go to Ondo Cups, you know. And we'll take our Blackmaging to the next level. So let's review our spells. We didn't go over all the spells at level 50 just because the rest of them are AoE situational spells, or things like sleep that you really never use unless you're maybe in Palace of the Dead or something solo. So at level 52 we should be getting, oh yeah, by the way, something that you can't really describe. Also at level 50 you need to learn how to teleport to your teammates. That takes a bit of work to get the timing down. You're gonna die learning it, but ethereal manipulation, having it on an easy to hit keybind, is really, really useful. Being able to click a teammate and just, you know what I mean? A little bit harder probably for PlayStation players, but it's very useful for sitting in AoEs until the last second and then getting out once that spell finishes casting that you were waiting on. And that's going to be something that's critical to your end game play. So, moving on. Level 50 plus. At level 52, you get ley lines. Ley lines is the game changer. It really is. I mean, look at it. It's a circle you put on the ground for 30 seconds, and if you're in it, your spell speed goes up, and your damage, your whatever, your everything is just better. You know? It's the good juice. But it's circles. Man, I am so lost in here. Where am I? Oh, it's this way. So, wait, is it this way? Oh god, no it's not. It's this way. Yeah, there we go. Okay. So level 60 Blackmage, right? You get ley lines. It's really awesome, but it changes the way you play. Again, I didn't teach you the safe openers, you know, which are typically low spell speed openers, opening with Blizzard 3 instead. I don't think at level 50 there's any reason to do that though, right? I think you should always open up with fire at level 50. Things get a little different though beyond that, because now we have ley lines, we have sharp cast, we have Enochian or Enochan, we have Blizzard 4, which means we have Umbral Hearts, and we have Fire 4. It's a completely different job now. It's very crazy because of these few abilities, right? Enochan, you want to think of that as a damage buff that enables better spells. It's like Super Saiyan mode. You gotta keep it up. How do you keep it up? You don't let your buffs fall off. It has a cooldown of 30 seconds, so if you cast it and then lose your buffs, you're gonna learn this the hard way, you're not gonna have your Enochan. It's gonna suck. That's just how Blackmage goes, you know? So you gotta avoid that. And sometimes, when you're juggling mechanics and rotation and trying to figure out what your teammates are doing and trying to figure out what you're doing, your buffs drop. And so that's part of learning a fight, learning it so well that you know how to adjust to everything else going on, do what you have to do, and not drop ehhh. It's the biggest deal. Most of the time it's pretty easy not to, but there's some tough situations when you're not totally comfortable with a new fight, right? So with your new opener, now you have a few options. You can actually make a good argument for the slow spell speed Blizzard opener now. You know, you can literally start with Blizzard 3 on cast, hit ehhh, hit Sharp Cast, hit Thunder, although you would want to precast Sharp Cast, but we'll get into that, right? And then hit Blizzard 4, and then Fire 3, right? Ley Lines, and then boom. Look, you're casting Fire 4s. Now, it plays out a little bit differently here, but you would cast Fire 4 until you're going to lose your buff. You can Swift Cast Fire if you need to, like I did there. We're going to cast Fire 4, Sharp Cast to Thunder 3, Fire 3, and that's, you know, we'll Mana Font, get some more Fire 4s out there, get our Thunder, and then it's back to Blizzard with Blizzard 3, and then Blizzard 4, and that, like, that's it, man. That's it. That's your new rotation. Why does it play out that way? You're getting these Umbral Hearts, these white thingamabobs, right? Ignore the purple ones. The white ones buff your fire spells, right? So Blizzard 4, which requires ehhh, gives you those. You set up your Blizzard, you get your buffs, and then you go. And I think that that's the ideal opener at level 60, rather than the fire one. I think that at level, 80, maybe even 70, we'll review that when we get there. But at level 60, there's not a whole lot of reason to open with Fire 4 per se, or Fire 3, because I mean you can spam those Fire 4s or whatever, but you don't have like the finishers that you get later on that make that rotation worth it. So I think it's better to just do like precast Sharp Cast, and what Sharp Cast does is it gives you your Thunder or your next Fire 1 the free proc, right? It's really awesome. So you want to precast before pulling a boss, let's say, at 11 seconds. So this is how I do it, right? This is an important skill to know as Blackmage. Countdown timer, whatever it is, right? We're going to do 20 seconds, for example, right? Oops, hold on. We got to drop combat. So annoying. Run. Run. Go. Go, little Blackmage, go. Go, 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 go. Alright, listen, this might not be the most condensed video, but it's going to be thorough. Alright, so when you're going to pull a boss and they do a countdown timer, and they don't always. They don't, especially in Alliance raids and like pugs and stuff. You don't get a countdown timer. So you have to start learning how to do it in your head for optimized Blackmage play. But in this example, let's say they do 20 seconds, right? Once you see the pop-up here from 15, right? You're going to wait till it goes away, and then now, Sharp Cast. That's when you're going to cast it. Not when it says 10 seconds, when it says that. And then, 5, 4, at 3 seconds, cast Blizzard 3. And then, ehhh, Thunder 3, and you'll get that proc before it goes away. Blizzard 4. That's how you play Blackmage. Ley Lines after Fire 3, and then you spam those Fire 4s. And like, that's it, man. That's the secret to the sauce. Now, what you want to keep in mind is Sharp Cast come up, Thunder 3 before it expires, Fire 1 after that, because you got to reapply your buff, and then back into Fire 4s. Those, like, do not take that lightly. That is the key. That is the secret to the sauce. That spamming your Fire 4s, like 3 times, I think, and then Sharp Casting your Thunder, getting your Fire back up. You can Sharp Cast Fire too if you need like to extend your Fire buff while moving. Some fights that would probably be better, but as a default for damage, I always Sharp Cast the Thunder spell. It just works out better in the end, right? Now when you're under Ley Lines, you get more casts, and obviously, so I typically do like 3 of these, reapply that Thunder, reapply that Fire just in time, when there's no ley lines. Just like that. We have a proc here. We're actually going to wait on using it, right? We're going to use Blizzard 3, Sharp Cast, Blizzard 2, and then Thunder. Why would we change it up like that? This is something we want to go over. And some people install like a weird add-on for this because of their mana ticks, but how your mana regenerates is very specific, and Blackmage is built around this with some cool spells. But at level 60, you don't really have those cool spells. So what it is that sometimes, right, like if we blow all our mana, right, when you go into Blizzard phase, there's a cadence on your mana regens, and sometimes you go in at a time where you're too early and you have to wait before you can cast that next spell. So if we're completely mana starved at level 60, I believe you can cast Blizzard 3 as mana starved. But if you can't, you're going to have to transpose and lucid dreaming. So just test that out. But let's say you Blizzard 3. Look, we can't cast Thunder yet, right? We couldn't cast Thunder there. We had to wait for the tick. Because of that, you can't do Blizzard 3. Sharp Cast did Thunder 3 into Blizzard 2. So hopefully you have a proc for those situations, because at level 60, that's your only hope, right? If you have a proc, you can do Blizzard 2 and then Thunder 3. And there's an issue, because sometimes you're going to only have an option of casting an unprocced Thunder 3. Maybe your buffs wore off, maybe something happened, whatever, you didn't get a proc. You have to keep in mind that casting Thunder costs mana. So if you did Blizzard 3 and then Blizzard 4 and then you did Thunder 3, we're going to dip below 10k mana, and now we have to wait for that tick. And sometimes the tick is like really immediate, where you could start casting Fire 3 and before it's done it would tick. Other times not so much, so you really want to watch out for that. So that's where the proc comes in. Procced Thunders don't cost mana. Blizzard 4, ending on Blizzard 4 when you don't have a proc is important because it does not cost mana when you're at full ice. MP cost is literally 0 on this. Check it out. Right? So ending on that is important so that you go into fire phase with full mana and you don't mess up your rotation. These are the fundamentals of level 60 Blackmage. Keeping in mind that you still have transpose, now less often used because you are fully transitioning with your Blizzard 3s and your Fire 3s. But, you know, emergencies, it's there. You now have ley lines. Ley line placement per every fight is going to be different. You have to line it up with where you're supposed to be standing. It's a 30-second buff. You don't stand in one place for 30 seconds almost ever in a lot of fights. So planning around mechanics is the way to go. And sometimes your position in a fight will make it easier or harder. For example, in a raid fight, typically the melee DPS get the southwest and southeast positions so they can easily attack the back of their boss with their positionals. Ranged typically get the northwest and northeast corners for clock split positions. That's really tough on Blackmage because it means you can't cast ley lines on opener without your teammates adjusting. And we'll get into more of that later. But it's just something to think about, is that there's a lot to learn, and if you don't have your rotation and understanding of abilities down really well, it's going to make things really complicated to learn. And so it's important, especially for those who thought, you know, level boosting Blackmage was like gonna be like an ice mage from WoW or something, you know. It's hard because you're a very immobile but at the same time mobile job. Let's start looking into level 70. So you level up to level 70 and you learn some really cool spells. First off, Between the Lines, a godsend spell. You can now teleport not only to teammates with ethereal manipulation with that 10-second cooldown, but also back to your ley lines with a 3-second cooldown. This is called the rubber band effect, right? It's beautiful. You place your ley lines on the ground. Oops. You teleport to this teammate over here with the ethereal, and you're like, I dodged a mechanic. And then you literally go right back. And now you're getting your buff again. It minimizes the amount of time you waste on ley lines. And wasting ley lines does feel bad. It feels like you're wasting a resource, but it's not as critical as not not fulfilling a mechanic and taking damage, not fulfilling a mechanic and wiping the group, or causing the healers to heal extra. Like, those things are things you want to avoid typically, but there are situations where you can get away with it and it's actually beneficial. Like, there are fights where if I know I'm playing with good healers, if there's a stack mechanic, sometimes I can get away with not stacking as Blackmage. Like, the healers are going to heal what they're going to heal anyways. It's not going to be too much added damage. I'm the only one missing the stack marker. You can get away with it in some of those situations. Not so much at endgame, like, savage rating, but sometimes even on savage rating, maybe if you have echo or you're over geared, or you have just phenomenal healers, whatever. Like, sometimes you can get away with it, where you're like, you just don't stack and you just do damage, and they're like, you know what, that actually worked out. That was good uptime. It just depends. You know what I mean? It just depends. And of course, it would be because your ley lines are not in the stack, right? Would be the only time you'd even consider something like that. So, you learn between the lines. You now learn Thunder 4. Thunder 4 is just the upgraded version of your previous Thunder spells. It keeps upgrading. You'll always have 2 Thunder spells, your AoE one and your single target one. Thunder 4 is your AoE one, so that's cool. You finally get triple cast at 66, and this is where it's a real game changer. Not only do you have ley lines and these movement abilities to teleport to teammates in 2 ley lines to dodge mechanics and be in the right place at the same time while maximizing uptime on casting, the always be casting ABCs of Blackmage, right? But now you have triple cast. Check it out. Check it out. Like, if you have, your fire stacks and your Eno Chan, and you cast a Fire 4, now you can triple cast and cast these Fire 4s while moving. It's phenomenal. And then with the added complexity of Swift Cast, you could, oh, look, I'm still moving. And then look, oh, I got a proc, I'm still moving, right? You're so mobile now when you line those up. You can dodge so many mechanics. That's something you've struggled with for 70 levels. It's now possible. It's all now possible thanks to triple cast. So there are 2 ways to use triple cast: raw DPS output or mechanic dodging, so that it's not quite as high as raw DPS output, but it's still higher than it would be if you went for raw DPS output and then lost out because now you're not casting any spells while dodging a mechanic, for example, So triple cast, you can reserve it or you can use it for damage. It's one of those things with Blackmage. You have to make decisions based on the mechanics of your particular fight. I typically have, let's see, can you do that opener at level 70? Let's find out. So, level 70, triple cast. Boom, 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 boom. This is again, I'm a fire-oriented player, so I like to do the fire openers. You can still do the ice openers here, but what I would do, now that we have triple cast, right, is at the countdown timer. Well, actually, before we do that, let's go over our last spell real quick. You also get Foul. Foul, this bar fills up while you're in combat, and you have Eno Chain on. You have to be in combat and have Eno Chain on, and this bar fills up. Then it fills up a Polyglot. You can spend that on Foul, which is an AoE 650, aspected, whatever, cast bar. Like, it's a cool spell. It's not something that you end up using really ever, unless you're in AoE situations later on. But at level 70, like, you can throw that at some single target and be okay. So let's go. We're going back, right? Now that we can do a countdown timer. So, with that in mind, we are going to go. And we are going to try something called the Fire Ley Lines Triple Cast Opener. It's going to be brutal. There's going to be some swift casting. For Foul, we're literally going to use swift cast on Foul specifically, okay? Because it has a long cast timer. Kind of like Flare, but not quite as bad. 2.28 over there, right? So, let's say they do a 20-second countdown on this boss. We're going to still pre-cast, sharp cast. And now, at 4 seconds, we're dropping ley lines. At 3 seconds, like right immediately after, fire 3. So ley lines, fire 3, and then look, Eno-Chan, Thunder 3. We're going to cast 1 Fire 4, and then triple cast 3 Fire 4s. Boom, just like that. Oh, hold on, I messed up. Okay, that actually we ran out of mana. We ran out of mana there. So is that possible? I don't know. Maybe I'm getting ahead of the curve here, but you see the idea. Let's take a look here. All right, so no Umbral Hearts, full mana. How many Fire 3s can we cast? 1, because we need to reapply our Fire buff, right? 2, 3, 4, 4. All right. Fire 1. Then we would Swift Foul into there, right? Reapply Lightning buff as needed. And then we would transition out. We have a Fire proc, so we won't transition out. And we'll get another Fire 4 in, right? We can Mana Font. Thunder 4. We have another. You wouldn't normally have another Foul at this point, so you would transition out with Blizzard 3. It's very interesting at level 70 because of this, right? And if you can't do the Foul, it's honestly okay. It's honestly okay. So let's try it again. Let's try it again. So we're gonna well, Sharpcast is kind of down. We're gonna need to wait a second here, and we'll get into some of these other cool spells here soon. But they're pretty cool. So 10 seconds. You just want to get into that habit of that mana management. So that didn't work because I didn't manage my mana properly, right? I didn't count the cost before we got there, and then it messed up the rotation. That's the Blackmage struggle. So let's go. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, right? And here we go. Triple cast Fire 4s. Boop. 1, 2, 3. Swift cast 5. And then, oh, see, you really can't, you just don't have time for it. You don't have time for it unless you have like crazy high spell speed. So that's okay. So this is what you do instead. I've been long casting 1 Fire 4. You just skip that part. You go Fire 3, Eno-Chan, Thunder 3, right? Triple cast, Fire 4, Fire 4, Fire 4, Swift cast Foul, Fire 1, transition out with Blizzard 3. And that's it. Nothing really changes on the Blizzard 3 front. You're still going to do Blizzard 3. You're still going to do Blizzard 4. If your Sharpcast is up, you'll reapply it. You'll do Thunder 3. You'll do Fire 3. Blah, 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 blah. And then you're back to Leyline's Fire forecasting. And that's really what it's about. And there's probably some nuances you can do better here. I'll admit, and I think it's quite obvious, like level 70 Blackmage is the one I know the least of, and you'll end up playing the least of it as well, just because level 70 content being what it is, where it is in the spectrum and what level the player base typically is on average. You don't do level 70 content as much as you do other stuff, and that's okay. Typically, when I'm taking level 70 content seriously, I do skip the Foul, just to avoid the overcomplication. And unfortunately, that is a DPS loss, but level 70 content, being what it is, it's typically okay. But that's really all that changes with level 70 Blackmage. You do get, some benefits with your freeze at 68. Okay. Oh, that's the other thing. You don't get Aspect Mastery till 72, so you absolutely cannot go to 0 mana without using Transpose until level 72. And that's it. That's all that is. Sharpcast also has a longer cooldown till 74, so you'll want to keep that in mind as well. Those are some differences, and that's unfortunately just the effects of not having a level 60 or 70 Blackmage to test that out. But now, you we've gone through the level brackets. We've seen the differences of the simplicity of level 50 Blackmage, keeping your dots up, spamming Fire 1, recharging, to level 60, learning how to place ley lines and how to teleport to teammates. And, well, you teleport to teammates at 50, but placing ley lines, we've learned the mana font and the sharp cast and the keeping your dot up and the addling and the mana warding and the sure casting, transpose if you need it, lucid dreaming if you run out of mana and need to transpose to ice phase, burning those fire 4s and still transitioning with blizzard 3 and fire 3, swift casting lightnings as a preference, but if you have to, something else to keep your buffs going, right? Level 70, we learned how to teleport back to our ley lines. We learned triple cast so we can move and shoot a lot. A lot. You know, and just keeping those buffs going. Reapplying Umbral Hearts with Blizzard 4. Reapplying Sharp Casted Thunders. Fire 3. We're finally going to the end game. The beauty that is Blackmage, where it all comes together in a pristine package. We get a second Polyglot now. We learn Xenoglossy, which is an instant cast, 750 potency, just beautiful movement spell, and it's high damage as well. Very, very high damage. We learn Enhanced Sharp Cast, so now the cooldown is much shorter. Right? Eno-Chan's magic damage boost is now 15% instead of 10. It's a good time to be Blackmage. We learn Despair, the finisher to our fire spam. Literally drains your mana, kind of like Flare, single target, beautiful finisher. We learn Umbral Soul. Umbral Soul is really good for transitional mechanics. Umbral Soul makes it so that if you are in Ice Phase and you have Eno-Chan up, you can spin, it resets your timer, does no damage, and gives you an Umbral Heart every time you do it. So if there's a part of the boss fight where you can't attack the boss, you just do this until you can attack the boss again. And that will happen a lot. It will happen a lot. Beautiful spell. Absolutely phenomenal. So, this is how Blackmage looks at level 80. Keeping in mind that because we're in combat, we're building stacks when we normally wouldn't be. Xenoglossy is reserved for 2 situations. You use Xenoglossy, actually 3. You use Xenoglossy when you have to move and shoot, like that. You use Xenoglossy when you're going to waste a Xenoglossy, right? So you can only hold 2 charges. If it comes up to a third, it just disappears. So you make sure that doesn't happen by using Xenoglossy. Triterially, the third situation where you can use Xenoglossy is in that example we talked about before, where you've transitioned from no mana to Ice Phase, or low mana, and you can't use Thunder 4 yet, or because of the way your procs have lined up, you don't need to cast Thunder yet. Maybe you have a Thunder Cloud and a Thunder buff on the enemy that's 20 seconds long, 18 seconds long, 16 seconds long, anything above 12, pretty much, right? You don't need to cast Thunder 3 again, and it can actually be a DPS loss in doing so, right? So if that's the case, and you transition into Ice, and you don't have the mana, per se, for a Thunder cast, or you don't need to do a Thunder cast because you're waiting on a mana tick, Xenoglossy fits really well there. Like, really, really well there. And then you get that mana tick and cast that Thunder. Maybe it's unprocced Thunder. That would be the most logical situation, is the transition back into Ice with Blizzard 3. You have Eno-Chan up. You need to do an unprocced Thunder cast, but you need to wait on a mana tick. Xenoglossy, Thunder, Blizzard 4, Fire 3, back into DPS land, right? So that's how Xenoglossy works. So when teaching the rotation, we don't really cover Xenoglossy like in the rotation, because you fit it in where you need it or where is applicable. So just keep that in the back of your head, right? There's a few rotations you can do at level 80 Blackmage. There's the slow ice openers and the fast fire, kind of the same trend that we've had the whole time. I have 2500 spell speed. So what I do to buff my spell speed, because my My gear right now is not optimal. I've not rated to my full potential on Blackmage this tier, as I use food. I have 510 chicken fettuccine. It's critical hit. Oh wait, skill speed? This is the wrong food. Okay, so let's go. Pickled herring. Direct hit spell speed. That's the buff, and that's the build for Blackmage. Now you would have 510 food typically. I don't remember which one it is. But you would cast your spell speed food, and your spell speed would go up to 2700 or whatever. 3600 is typically what you want for this to be super awesome, but that's a really hard number to get without like full targeted raid gear. So you don't actually need that much to pull this off, but it's, you know, a lot better if you do. So you have as much spell speed as you can in direct hit. I technically have way too much crit, but that's okay. It's kind of weird right now with the relic weapons out, honestly. It's kind of weird, but that's okay. So, level 80. Here is the Japanese opener, the fire, the hot and fast and powerful, right? You precast the sharp cast. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, right? And then Thunder 4, 1, Fire 4, Triple Cast, Fire 4, Swift Cast, Fire 4, Fire 4, Despair, Mana Font, Fire 4, Despair again, Sharp Cast, preferably with more spell speed. You would do Blizzard first, but we don't, so Lightning, Blizzard 3, Blizzard 4, Fire 3, we have 15 seconds, Fire 4, Fire 4, Fire 4, gonna cast our Lightning before it wears off, Fire 1, just in time for more Fire 4s. We got a proc there, that's super awesome. Fire 4, we're gonna Sharp Cast Fire 3 to extend our buff. Xenoglossy, because we have it. Despair, Blizzard 3, Thunder 3, Blizzard 2, Fire 3, and Triple Cast. And this is the cadence that we go off Swift Cast, right? Fire 4, Fire 4, Fire 4. I'm going to cast another Fire 4. I'm going to cast Fire 1, and then Thunder 3, and we're back at it. This is it. This is the rotation. And it might not seem that exciting, but when you're juggling mechanics and trying to do all this at the same time, let me tell you, it gets intense when you're trying to add all certain spells and Surecast and Mana Ward. At this point, you really don't use Lucid Dreaming pretty much ever, unless you mess up and end up mana starved and not in Ice stance. Then you pop Lucid Dreaming to get enough mana to cast Blizzard 3. That's or Blizzard 1 even, you know, whatever you need. You'll notice in my Blizzard 1s out here in the I don't use this spell almost ever land, you know. That's it. Yeah, that's Blackmage. That is how it plays. And so it seems pretty simple, right? When you're just standing here casting. But this game is not about standing here casting. You're managing buffs. You're managing procs. You're managing Swift Cast and Sharp Cast and Mana Ward and Battle. Oh, it's beautiful. And that's it. I mean, that's really all there is to Blackmage. You know, so now, when you go and watch a Blackmage guide, for example, you have the context. You have the context to look at their rotation and say, why are they doing it this way? How much spell speed do they have? You know? And there's also the question of, how do I even get the spell speed that I want? And we'll go over that. We have some time in this, you know, hour-long Blackmage tutorial on how to go over gearing up in Final Fantasy XIV, because that's something that a lot of new Black Mages are probably going to be confused about, right? Everyone's talking about these targeted spell speed brackets. How do I get there? So I'm going to tell you up front, you're not going to get there right away. You're just not. You're not going to get enough spell speed just by going to a vendor and buying some gear. It takes a lot of work to get the spell speed that you want. You have to target certain pieces of gear over other pieces of gear, and it's you know, it's work. So, if we come to the vendor, where am I? We're going to look at this from the perspective of someone who's playing when it patches current and that they're not using catch-up gear. Like right now, I have a lot of catch-up gear on my Blackmage, so things are a little weird. I'm sacrificing stat priority for item level at the moment, and it's okay to do that when you're catching up, but when you're like pushing content when it's current, you don't have echo buff, and so to make up for echo buff, you gotta really think about your gear pieces. So the current raid tier, it's all the way down here, right? And if you look at Blackmage, oops, hold on, this is the wrong one. Sorry. If you look at Blackmage, you have a bunch of raid pieces. This is a full set, right? Which ones prioritize spell speed? Well, the weapon does not. The weapon is a critical hit and direct hit. So you probably wouldn't use that weapon if you're going for a spell speed build. But you would for a critical hit build, right? The helmet. And these are all done by doing the latest raid, right? The helmet is also not spell speed. The chest piece is not spell speed. Oh look, the gloves are not spell speed. The belt, though, is 226 spell speed, so you would pick up the raid belt if you wanted to go fast and fire. If you want to go slow and ice opener, you would do all these raid pieces instead. Pants are spell speed, so you would pick up pants. Boots are not. Ring is not. Necklace is not. Wristlet is not. Ah, but the ring of casting is, so you would pick up the ring of casting. So you would pick up your ring, your belt, and your pants, and that would be all the gear. If you want to be a spell speed build, direct hit spell speed, that's all the gear you need from the Savage Raids. That's it. So there are still drops from the Savage Raids you would need, though, to upgrade the Tombstone gear. So now there are Tombstones that you can get every week at a max. Well, usually 450, now it's 900. Whew. Right? From the Tombstone exchange. And it starts out at a lower item level. Right? 520 instead of 530. And then you have to upgrade it to 530. So you see spell speed on the helmet, so you'd pick up this helmet. Spell speed on the chest, so you'd pick that up. There's no glove. Are there no spell speed on both sets of gloves? Is that true? Hold on, let's take a look. Both gloves don't have spell speed, so that's depressing. You would augment that by slotting spell speed into it with materia. And we'll get into that in a second. So you pick your gloves. You'd probably pick the Tombstone gloves, if I had to guess, because it lines up with your direct hit, determination, and not crit. Since you're not building crit, you're building spell speed or crit, not both, typically. Right? So then you don't do belt, you don't do pants. Pick up, oh, do boots also not have? Hold on, let's go look, Boots. Right? Boots are direct hit, determination, so you would pick up the raid boots as well. Although you could very easily get away with doing these boots also, because, I mean, it's just that they have crit. Oh, wait, hold on. Maybe I'm looking at the wrong boots. Yeah, they have crit, and that's kind of a wasted stat on you if you're doing spell speed. That's why you would not do the Tombstone boots. So you would pick up the raid, pants, belt, ring, and boots, and then everything else crit flickers. And then, using the drops from the raid, you would augment that stuff. You would take, you know, the 520 version and the raid drop and turn it into your 530 version. You would get your Crypt Lurker's ring, because you get 2 rings, so you'd wear one of each. And you'd get all the jewelry. You literally get a full set of Tombstone jewelry because it all has spell speed on it, except for the ring. But you need 2 rings, so you get one of each pretty much no matter what. I mean, there's no other variance there when a patch drops. So you just target that gear. And if you were a slower crit speed focused Blackmage, you would do the opposite. You would focus on those raid pieces that are crit and the Tombstone gear pieces that are crit. And that's what you would do. That's how you gear out a Blackmage. From there, you go all the way over here to the materia vendor, buy whatever materia you can or need, do the melter, and let's like use this as an example, right? Then you would slot in, whatever you can, prioritizing as a spell speed black mage, which the reason I like that one is because it has the highest potential for damage, even if it's just by a little bit, and I think it's more fun to play, going pew 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 pew. But that's just me. And you would slot the materia in here for as much spell speed as possible, not skill speed, spell speed, until you're capped, until it turns like it's going to turn red and waste it. Then from spell speed, you go to direct hit, and you stop doing spell speed if by some miracle you ever hit 3600. Like you are with food. You don't need to get there without food, but you pop food and you're like, my spell speed is 36 or very close. We're going to drop down and start focusing on direct hit. But until then, you slot your spell speed materia. If you can't, you then do direct hit. And if you can't do direct hit or spell speed, you do determination. That's your focus. And that's it, man. That's like everything black mage that you need to know to do it. And again, it's the same thing. If you're going the slow crit build, you just focus critical hit, direct hit after that, I think, and then determination. You just skip spell speed altogether. You know what I mean? I don't like having low spell speed because then your spells cast longer to cast, and you have to really like in my experience, I found myself canceling spell casts more often, and that's what I didn't like about it. But that's just me. You can play it however you want, and it does really, really well however you want. So this was a very informal stream / video. It was very long. Thanks for hanging out during it. Hopefully that gives you some context and some digestible information about playing Black Mage as a new player. And you might find issues with this guide. I'm sure you will. I'm not perfect, but it'll get you on the path to where you're going. All you're going to need from here on out is some experience, some time just spent doing it, some time spent dying, some time spent living, some time chasing that high of like, oh my god, Black Mage, I'm doing the mechanics and the spells, and I'm at the top of the aggro list besides the tank, and I'm just blowing stuff up, and people are giving me comms. Like, that's the path of Black Mage, man. It's super great. The community really respects good Black Mages. So until next time, see you later.